Crimson Desert is on the horizon. It's kind of amazing to think, because we've known about this one for quite a while, and to be frank, it's one of the most ambitious open-world games we've ever seen, based on what we have seen. But with its impending release, there is some stuff that might help to have kicking around up in the old brain. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things you need to know about Crimson Desert. Starting off with number 10, it is the open world. From everything Perlibes has shown us, it looks like the open world for Crimson Desert is going to be absolutely massive. According to an interview with the developers, they say the map is twice the size of Skyrim, and it's bigger than Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm not so sure that the size itself is what's important, though. What's so striking is just how far you can see away. I realize it's maybe more of a specific choice than a technical thing at this point in time, but it just feels markedly different. It imposes this sense of scale that I think would be there even if it wasn't the size that it is, but it is. The game is split into 5 separate regions, which you can explore at your own leisure. Sounds like there's no level gates or walled-off segments of the map you can access at certain points in the story, that type of thing. I don't think that's there. The game gives you access to the entire map right from the start. Whether you're actually going to be able to survive some of the more difficult regions, that's another thing. You do start off in the region of Herdund, a pastoral place full of mountains and rivers. The second main region is Paolun, the homeland of the Greymane, your main character's clan in the northernmost region of the map, so snowy mountains basically. Next is Dominus, the center of power on the continent where the capital resides. A lot of castles, cities, army camps, etc. Fourth region is Delesia, the forefront of science and technology. Looks like a place out of a completely different game. It's got flying machines, robots, all kinds of crazy crap. Final region is the titular Crimson Desert, of course. A vast, arid landscape of lawlessness and mystery. The game isn't just huge. It appears to have one of the most varied open worlds we've ever seen, or at least that we've seen in a while. I was mentioning that it kind of outdoes what you expect out of an open world game, but at the same time, it feels a lot like the open worlds of old, like when they're really trying to, like, hey, let's get as much as we can in here. It feels like that. But you've got all that terrain. There is also the sky itself, which is connected to the Abyss, an important aspect of the story, where wild magic and raw power, that stuff resides there, I guess. The sky is home to ruins you can explore, even gateways into the Abyss itself. There are rideable flying mounts, which, if you remember, Nintendo has a patent on, so we have another demonstration of how stupid IP law is. And also, it looks great. Hey, before we continue, a bunch of people have commented that they're not seeing all of our videos as we upload them. Probably the best thing you can do to remedy that is enabling notifications. It also helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. Does us a big solid. And we hope it helps you see some stuff you want to see. Thanks a lot for enabling notifications. Let's get back to the video. Moving on to number 9, it's the combat. One important thing about Crimson Desert is to keep in mind that, according to the developers, the game is not an RPG. It's an action-adventure game set in an open world. Combat is an essential part of the experience, and it looks really satisfying and fun. A lot of the pre-release footage shows a more powerful version of the main's character, Cliff, but you don't start off like that. You begin the game with a much more grounded set of abilities you'd expect to see in like any other action game. You get access to a variety of weapons, like a sword and shield, spears, greatswords, axes, long-range weapons like bows, and magic spells. Combat consists of the usual mechanics: dodging, blocking, parrying, using weapon skills to gain an advantage against what looks like some pretty large-scale battles against swarms of enemies. One aspect of the combat that stands out as fairly unique and different is how you can combo together hand-to-hand techniques and a variety of grapple moves to gain an advantage over your enemies. You can grab guys, toss them into each other, you can throw them through wooden palisades, you can generally toss and kick guys around in a pretty satisfying way. There's also an Azuna drop for you Ninja Gaiden fans, so there's quite a lot of variety and depth to your arsenal of abilities if all these previews are to be believed. As you progress through the game, you can get access to more fantastical abilities that you can chain together, traversal moves, some pretty crazy maneuvers, warping all over the battlefield and jumping high in the air, only to finish a guy off with a massive torpedo kick from 1,000 yards away. The scale of the combat looks absolutely nuts, too. There appears to be full-on castle sieges that you can participate in, and you have access to some absolutely crazy weaponry like missile-firing mechs that can rain down hellfire on large groups of foes. that type of thing. You eventually also gain access to elemental abilities you can augment your attacks with, cause status effects, etc. Everything they've shown about the combat looks absolutely fantastic. I'm loving how visceral the hits feel, how physics-based a lot of the interactions actually really look like they are. There's a controlled chaos to it, where you're smashing the scenery, tossing people around. Brutal, but looks like it has a lot of depth. Could make for some pretty interesting and exciting combinations. At number 8, there are 2 new playable characters. Out of all the things that were revealed in this first features overview video, this is probably one of the craziest. For years, we all assumed there was only 1 playable character in the game, but that is not the case. The latest footage shows us there will actually be 3 playable characters, and each have their own equipment, combat styles, and skills. Not much is actually known about the 2 other characters, only that you eventually recruit them to your cause, and they can be used freely when playing side content. It sounds like Cliff remains the main character, and you have to play as him when you progress in the main story, but for everything else, sounds like there may be a huge chunk of the game that is everything else, might I add. For everything else, though, you can play as these 2 other characters. One is a woman who uses a lot of ranged weapons like pistols and rifles, along with a rapier for close-range combat, and the other is an orc who has a lot more brutal of a combat style with access to heavy weapons like a great axe and a literal hand cannon. Each character looks pretty distinct. They're not reskins of the main guy. They have access to stuff the main character doesn't, and overall from the previews, it seems like they play pretty differently. So while they're maybe not essential characters, you can't play the entire game as them as far as I can tell. They do seem to add a lot of variety to the experience, and they let you engage with the world in a completely different way than if you were playing the entire game as the main character. At number 7, the many types of traversal abilities. One of the most fascinating things about Crimson Desert is how many options this game seems to give you to get around the world. It seems to start off simply enough with a horse mount and the ability to climb any surface, Breath of the Wild style. There's free falling, there's a glider. Again, this stuff takes inspiration from the open world Zeldas, requires stamina to stay afloat, makes sense. There's also a full-on grappling hook, which seems to be able to grab onto any surface and either pull you towards it or allow you to swing from it. These things will be chained together with the glide ability to really get around the world quickly. A horse is not the only thing that you can ride either. You can also ride a bear, like a full-on gigantic bear that can rampage through enemies, which is pretty crazy and pretty freaking cool. But also, it's got nothing on the literal mech you can pilot. I know I mentioned this already, but it bears repeating. You can pilot a robot suit and launch missiles at enemies. Like, there's a machine gun, it has a jetpack. It's goddamn ridiculous. But that's not it at all. There's also a dragon mount, which allows you to fly freely through the sky, which again, Nintendo has a patent on. I'm just emphasizing the idea that Nintendo has a patent on it because it's stupid. That is not an enforceable patent. Look at all of the other games with a goddamn flying mount. There are even a few more abilities shown in the trailers, like this move where you can launch off a wall and double jump through the air. Of course, as usual, fast travel type stuff. The game starts off fairly limited in terms of movement, but it seems like it just keeps adding things until you can get around the world in a manner that will make the Just Cause guy blush. And number 6 is the exploration. There's so many ways to get around. Would be a shame if there was nothing to actually see or do in Crimson Desert, but the developers seem pretty serious about making it an open world worth exploring. In their previews and interviews, Pearl Abyss has put a lot of emphasis on the fact that the world will be full of unique and interesting points of interest to discover on your own. There are, of course, going to be a ton of quests, but what interests me about this game is that a lot of the world is seemingly unmarked, and they're leaving it up to the inquisitive and intrepid players to discover things about the world. They made it clear that there is not a strict path to follow. There's some aspect the progression will be non-linear. It's up to the player to explore. There's going to be Red Dead-style treasure maps, secret doors, puzzles that are dotted around the world. Bosses are apparently going to also play a major role in exploration. A lot of these things you can just find out in the world, or they're hiding out in some hard-to-reach area, but it's not just unique encounters. The game also seems to have a strong puzzle-solving element to it as well, like world puzzles. But also there's floating ruins and fragments of the abyss, which seem to hide more complex Tears of the Kingdom-style puzzle areas, where you can, among other things, manipulate objects with like laser tethers and move them around and reposition them to trigger mechanisms, etc. From what I've seen, it seems like the world has a ton of stuff to discover, which plays a central role in how you build your character. And number 5 is the progression systems. Another aspect of Crimson Desert seems pretty unique for a game that, is like this is the progression. It's not necessarily tied to experience meter. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but from the previews, it sounds like you're mostly improving your character by finding, buying, and upgrading equipment from vendors around the world and acquiring artifacts, which can be found in a bunch of different ways. Some you get for completing quests, some are found from clearing out enemy camps and combat encounters, others you get just from exploring, and of course, a lot of these things are held by bosses. Artifacts are how you increase your core stats. They raise your health or stamina. Breath of the Wild style. It's a new term. We took Wild style and we added Breath of the. It's not all they do, though. They unlock new skills or abilities or allow you to power up existing ones. Equipment seems, I think, to play an important role here. Finding weapons and armor with unique bonuses seem essential for increasing strength. At least that's the impression I'm getting. Along the way, you can also customize your equipment with bonus stats, special effects that make them more powerful using a special vendor. Upgrading your equipment requires resources, which are obtained through mining or hunting animals. Other resources can be earned by beating bosses as well. So there's a crafting system, pretty simplified looking though. You just need to have stuff you give to a blacksmith or an enchanter, and they do it. At least that's how how it looks in the previews. At least one more thing you can do to progress your character is observing people in the open world doing specific actions, and you can copy it. The first overview trailer shows Cliff learning how to fish using this method, which is pretty funny. And number 4 is the bosses. Pretty safe to say the bosses seem to be a central feature in this game. They're climactic encounters, they're all over the place in the previews, and they've revealed some absolutely absurd stuff that has me curious how the game's going to play out. I mean, we're only scratching the surface of what's in the game in these reveals, right? So what aren't they showing us? Not to say that it's all over the top, like there's quite a few human-on-human encounters. Sounds like all the stuff they banned off of Craigslist. That stuff looks relatively grounded, though. But then they show you something like this giant Yeti monster, a fuzzy white spider creature, some just crazy nuts like a clockwork dragon, and you start wondering, how far is this game going to go? There is a Leonardo da Vinci-inspired tank boss, so what else might there be? The second features overview trailer they show, Cliff is fighting a literal battleship that would not look out of place in an Ace Combat game. The scale of some of these encounters, especially the aerial ones, is beyond belief. All of it looks very entertaining and very varied. That's the most interesting thing about the game. A lot of the bosses look unconventional, or you fight them in ways that are different from the standard gameplay loop. A lot of the fights that do stick to the formula also look quite good. Like, you don't want to mix things up too much with a combat system that looks this good. But the fact they're willing to experiment and throw some completely off the wall stuff, I really like that. That's a confidence that the developers are showing off. And number 3 is the factions. While there is a main path to follow, Crimson Desert also seems to have a ton of side quests to explore. There's more conventional Witcher-style bounty quests you can take on. There's also faction quests, which can be mundane, or they can be epic in their own right, with full-on castle sieges, unique boss battles, etc. I haven't talked about one aspect that we have seen so far. There's occasionally large-scale battles that you participate in, where you can really cut loose. Like, the skirmishes in general look pretty big in this game, but there's war scenarios. They look even more spectacular. Helping or hurting factions is how you really affect the world. Assist a faction in retaking a town, people move back into what used to be an enemy-occupied area. They'll open up shops for you. Cleaning out certain faction strongholds can make certain regions safer to traverse. Generally, locations like forts and castles change hands when you assist a faction. From the information we've been given, I don't think it's a New Vegas kind of situation where you can decide to help or hurt one faction or another. It seems like there's friendly and hostile factions that don't change. They're either friendly or hostile. Some will want your help and others will just try to kill you on sight. You are choosing to assist them or not, though. That can have a huge impact on the state of the world, or at least that's the impression I'm getting. And number 2, you have to rebuild the home of the Greymane. It's probably one of the more mysterious and vague mechanics of this game. During the second features overview video, there's a passing statement about talking about the factions, where assisting them leads you to being able to obtain stone, lumber, and other supplies to rebuild the home of the Greymanes. Re-establishing your clan is a major part of the game's story, but this makes it sound like you need to obtain resources in order to rebuild, which implies there's some sort of town rebuilding mechanic in the game. Perhaps it's something like Ravensthorpe from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or maybe it's a little more in-depth. Perhaps it's actually more basic even. Like there's some kind of quest progression blocker if you don't have enough resources or something. I don't know. At this point in time, how exactly this mechanic works is pretty unclear, but there are clues that point towards it being something everywhere in the trailers. It's not just that you get supplies from completing quests. It's also that vendors sell tools like mallets and shovels. The fact that one of the major goals of the game is to find a new home for your people that suggests on some level that's important. You're building up a new village or a main base or something from scratch. Might be elaborated further in the third and final feature overview video, or it might not be anything. I don't know. And finally, at number 1, the obvious stuff, the release date and other info. We are only scratching the surface of this game. The developers apparently have a lot more up their sleeves, and I cannot wait to see what else they've got, because the entire lead up to release has just been one crazy reveal after another. It's a game that sounds almost too good to be true, but it's real. It's coming out for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC on March 19th. There have been so many previews for this game that seem like they couldn't possibly have something left to show, but apparently that is not the case at all. According to the devs, there's a whole lot of game they haven't revealed, and they apparently believe that after all they've shown, it's not going to affect players' enjoyment of the final product. Game looks massive, very impressive visually. Combat looks spectacular. The developers are already paying close attention to feedback, too. For example, in response to some people complaining about the particle effects and how they're visually distracting in the trailers, the devs are implementing a slider in the options that's going to allow players to turn down those effects or even turn them off. Sounds like the guys behind this game are aware of what players want and expect, and they want to make a responsive, good product, which is a great sign for things to come, especially because the game's not even out, and they're doing stuff like this. Honestly, if this game manages to live up to all the pre-release hype, or just the stuff that they've shown, if it lives up to what they've shown us, this might be an all-timer. It might be the next step in the open world genre, like as a whole, like a Witcher-sized step. Like we've been experiencing, in my opinion, a lot of things in the wake of The Witcher in the open world area of gaming. I mean, to some extent, even Cyberpunk 2077 is very Witcher-like in structure. It certainly had an effect on Assassin's Creed. The open world Assassin's Creeds kind of tried to do similar things, albeit a bit differently. Like The Witcher dictated a lot of what open worlds have been for a while, and this looks like a big step. I'm really excited. It's only a few short weeks away, but what do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first, of course, is a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Join the 1% Club by clicking the join button. You get access to the Falcon Show, which goes up exclusively for members every Saturday. Thanks a ton. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.